My name is Anuhea, and this is my contemporary business leader presentation. And this is the overview of all the things I'll be going over. So my business leader description I chose was Michael Lemus, and he actually works for Grand Canyon University. He's the worship production coordinator. So he oversees a team of 15 students, and he actually puts on the spiritual life events such as chapel and gathering, and he's been in his position for 5 years. I chose Michael because he actually shows really strong leadership skills, and he uses psychological empowerment of giving individuals a sense of purpose while serving the Lord, which is the Christian foundation. And then he also uses influence tactics. So the theory that I found most suited Michael was relationships oriented behavior. He values establishing a positive relationship that is centered around a strong community within his team, and he embeds each person with willingness and empowerment in order to deepen the skills of each student on the team. He also uses servant leadership to uplift individuals so that they can grow in their own individual pursuits and interests. And he also bridges the gap between individual interests and the values with the organizational goals, allowing students to pursue what they are most interested in learning. And he's also willing to foster the relationships with guidance and support. And I also wanted to point out that in order to carry out tasks, for our team, we just work so well together because we've spent so much time outside of work. So we were able to foster personal connections with one another, which is why we are able to carry out our tasks. So I really think that for our team, relationships orientated is so important because we have that strong foundation of relationships and personal connections, we're able to carry out our tasks and positions more successfully. So the leader's greatest achievement would be influencing people. So Michael is very much a people's person, and he actually has a passion to mentor students so that they will be more equipped in the industry of production and also the real world. So he influences students and works collaboratively with different teams in spiritual life, and that's essential for the flourishing of the organization. And Michael does this by enhancing students' passions and allowing that to shine through the work that they do through production. And he says if students have a passion in what they're doing, then that will enhance their expertise and allow for them to successfully carry out that role. So if they have that drive, then they're able to actually do well in their position. And he also allows for creativity to take place. So for each different person on the team, he selects them through the hiring process based on how well they will fit together with the team. And also, he puts people into the position they're most interested in, and it allows for creativity to take place. So, there are different areas that people can go in, such as camera, audio, lighting, and graphics. And the management styles that I chose for Michael was task orientated because Michael is a very structured person, and we actually use a app called Planning Center, which assigns roles, tasks that need to get done during chapel and gathering. And then he also uses transformational leadership in building up each one of his students in order to successfully carry out their roles. And based on the scoring, he demonstrates very high leadership skills because of the characteristics that he portrays when he empowers the people and he influences them based on his expertise. For handling challenge, Michael said that he really struggles with working with the different teams. So cross-functional team conflict is a big thing that he struggles with because we work with a lot of different teams like events, AV, worship team, and production. And sometimes there can be miscommunication, and a lot of times no one likes to take ownership for the things that go wrong. So usually our team is the team that takes responsibility and determines what went wrong in the situation and how to better handle it where the trust was broken. So we find out what the root cause was, and then we bridge the gap between the problem and the solution through communication, of course. And then In conclusion, Michael demonstrated really strong servant leadership skills in working through conflict because, as you can see, the characteristics he scored were all five. He's very well at listening, and he also takes into consideration the opinions of other people as well. And he also admits when he is wrong, which is a very strong leadership skill to have. Power bases, impact of behavior. So for Michael, he actually uses personal power, which actually will strengthen the commitment of each individual on the team. And with that being said, in personal power, you have expert power, which means that, Michael, he knows what he's doing because he's been in that position. And also based on each individual that gets hired on the team, they bring in different expertise and experience. And depending on that, they're assigned their role in their job and they're able to pursue what they want or what they value. And then for referent power, this is super important for our team because we like to establish and foster personal connection and relationships with each other. All right, leadership comparison. So I compared Michael to Jonathan Reckford, and he is actually a nonprofit CEO of Habitat for Humanity. So they build houses for people that are more affordable. So they're very similar to one another because they both value servant leadership, which is building up the people that they influence. And it's very centered around community, which is why I chose to compare these two together. And some of the weaknesses that I found with Michael's leadership style is that he tends to lose sight of organizational goals when he focuses more on personal relationships. And then with Jonathan Reckford, because he is leading a huge amount of people, he also provides that necessary resources in order to be successful. But what happens is he kind of overemphasizes the vision, or the bigger picture, and sometimes he doesn't really take into consideration the day-to-day tasks that need to get done. Mission, visionary, and the entrepreneurial mindset. So for Michael, he scored fairly low for this part, but I want to emphasize that for the GCU worship production, they really value purpose, growth, and action through empowering the students. And they really encourage the students to take initiative in their positions and to fulfill their passions through production, as well as influence others around them to their fullest potential. But I want to say that Michael be scored moderate range because he doesn't like to take risks because a lot of times it can go wrong. And he likes to know and have control over what he does in the organization so nothing goes wrong, which is why he's so good at his job. He also tends to play into the work hard, play hard mindset, which means that although we have a very structured and very organized job, there is a time and place where we can have fun as well and just be together as a team, which is so important to embed into a team because I have I have seen in our own team that it's very important because you want each individual on your team to connect with each other so that they can actually be successful in their positions. And once that is established, then you can have that play hard mindset of having fun, and letting loose a little bit. And then the contingency approach would be having to have multiple ways to teach people. And when I interviewed Michael, he had told me that there is no one way to manage, which is actually really funny because I can apply that. But he said that there is different situations or approaches you can use to manage people based on the situation, which is contingency approach. So, leadership lessons. So, one thing that Michael touched upon was that he loves to mentor and coach people. So, for our team, he does one-on-one. So, he meets personally with each individual member each week to kind of establish a personal connection and just to see what's going on in our lives outside of work. This actually will foster the connection that he has, and it will also establish trust. And then you also have the self-determination theory that I applied to this lesson. And he encourages motivation and individual goals and interests in pursuing students' passions with Christ. So you have that very Christ-centered foundation. Lesson two is clear communication and a cast vision. So what this means is Michael always wants us to be reminded of what we do, why we do it, and who we impact. So we do it for God and to serve His kingdom, but we also do it to influence the people that come to the events, to have that Christ-centered foundation, and also leading people through the change, fostering trust and commitment. This is super important to have a very effective team. Critical reflection of the research project. So I wanted to emphasize that between Michael and Jonathan, which are my comparisons of exceptional leaders, they both have very strong and similar leadership approaches, and they value personal development and empowerment. But I chose Michael personally because he's a mentor and a coach. So he influences the people that he's around, but he also coaches them and motivates them to do their best. And I really admire Michael for his Christ-centered foundation and just embedding God in everything that we do. And he also bridges the gap between work and real life. And he also empowers us to do our best as well and equipping us with the knowledge that we need. And I also asked him a few other questions in order to get more information. But I want to say that the challenges faced during this project was trying to decipher what leadership styles work best because really there is no best way to approach to approach a to approach leadership, but it is based and it does depend on the situation. And I wish I was a little bit more prepared, but it was my first interview, and I will say that I did a pretty good job.